In the middle of a desolate prairie, a giant human figure hung upside down from a crude wooden frame, her eyes tightly shut, black hair dangling straight toward the cracked earth. Her entire body was a map of deep purple welts and blood, seeping lash marks. Her skin had been scorched by the sun, and her breathing was reduced to faint, rasping gasps. Sheriff Eli Thompson had strung her up earlier that morning, leaving behind a cold remark before riding off. "Leave her. Let the sun and the vultures take care of the rest." The vultures were already circling high above, as if waiting for the slightest signal to dive down. Suddenly, the sound of hooves echoed in the distance. Caleb Morgan, a rancher on his way back from town, pulled up short when he spotted the massive figure swaying in the shimmering heat like a desert mirage. "Dear God," Caleb whispered as he dismounted. He looked up at the woman, then at the savage lash marks carved across her skin like claw marks from a wild beast. Tala opened her eyes, catching only the blurry shape of someone approaching. Her voice trembled, broken and weak. "It hurts. Please, do not keep going. Just end it already." Caleb shook his head and drew a knife from his belt. "I am not going to hurt you. One swift slice." The rope gave way, and Caleb rushed forward, catching the giant woman's falling body, setting in motion a story he never imagined would end up changing his own fate. Caleb closed the wooden door behind him. Inside the small cabin, the only light came from a flickering oil lamp, accompanied by the scent of herbs and the heavy breathing of the Apache woman lying on a rough wooden bed. Tala Red Hawk opened her eyes for the second time. She tried to push herself upright, but a sharp pain from the lash wounds across her back made her muscular frame flinch. Caleb bent down to steady her, his hands rough but strangely gentle. "Careful," he said. "You are torn to shreds." Tala glanced around, her eyes filled with suspicion. "Where is this place?" "My ranch." "I cut you down from that frame," Caleb replied, setting a cup of water beside her. "Drink." She picked up the cup, but her hands trembled so badly that the water sloshed over the rim. She took a few sips, her voice hoarse as she asked, "Are you planning to hand me over to them?" Caleb sank into a wooden chair with a heavy sigh. "I was going to take you to the town courthouse in the morning. Everyone deserves a fair trial. Whether you are Apache or from the town." Tala let out a bitter laugh, then winced in pain. "A trial? In that town?" She looked him straight in the eye, her gaze sharp as a blade. "You really think I would survive long enough to see a trial?" Caleb said nothing. He understood what she meant, but waited for her to speak. And Tala did, each word falling like blood from a wound. "Sheriff Thompson hung me up there for a different reason. He did not want me to speak the truth." She pushed herself up again, clutching the blanket to steady herself. "He killed my father." Caleb flinched slightly, but stayed silent. "My father brought gold into town to trade for supplies for our tribe." Tala continued, "We go hungry in winter." He went alone. Thompson ambushed him, shot him in the back like an animal. The oil lamp cast shadows across her face. Now hardened with anger, he took the gold, then buried my father's body by the Arkansas River. Her voice dropped, tired, but unyielding. "I only came to take back the gold. I did not steal from him. I reclaimed what belongs to my people." Caleb glanced at the cloth sack on the floor, the one the sheriff had called stolen evidence, and slowly, he began to realize something. He was standing face to face with a truth far bigger than any barroom brawl. Tala spoke softly now, her eyes locked on his silhouette. "In the lamplight, if you hand me over to Thompson, you will save yourself. But you will also kill the only chance my father has of being cleared." Caleb stood up, took a few steps around the room, then turned to face her, eyes heavy with thought. "I do not know what I am going to do," he said honestly. "But I know one thing." He leaned down, his voice low and steady. "You did not deserve to be strung up on that prairie like some animal." Tala said nothing. But in her weary eyes, for the first time, there flickered a tiny spark of trust, fragile, but real. The Kansas dawn had just begun to break, its pale light still unable to chase away the mist, when the sound of hooves pounded against the dry earth like war drums. Caleb stood by the window, watching red dust swirl in the distance. He knew this storm was coming. It always was. Just minutes later, Sheriff Eli Thompson appeared at the edge of the ranch, flanked by 6 armed men. all on horseback. Their faces were tense, drawn like bowstrings. Their guns remained holstered, but the way their hands rested on the grips made it clear one wrong breath, and blood would spill. Caleb stepped out onto the porch. He had already locked the back door to keep Tala safe inside. Thompson pulled his horse to a stop right at the front steps, his posture arrogant. "Morgan," he called, voice cold and even. "You are harboring a fugitive savage. Turn her over." Caleb kept his gaze calm. Even though his heart was pounding, she nearly died out there from torture. "I will bring her to the courthouse, not hand her back to you." One of the gunmen nudged his horse forward a step, just enough to raise the tension. Thompson looked at Caleb like he was a fool. "The courthouse?" he scoffed. "Out here, there is only one law, mine." Caleb did not back down. He spoke slowly. "Real law is not made by men like you." The air went still. The 6 guns were still in their holsters, but they all tilted slightly toward Caleb, a silent threat. Thompson tightened his reins, leaning forward, cruelty gleaming in his eyes. "This is your last chance. Give me the savage." Caleb stared him down. "No." A deadly silence fell. Thompson clenched his jaw, then suddenly let out a low, humorless laugh. "All right," he nodded. "You want to be a hero, Morgan?" He pointed a finger at Caleb's chest. "You have exactly 1 day, by sunset tomorrow. If that Apache woman is not in my hands," the sheriff ground his teeth, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper, "I will hang you both from this porch." Then he swept his gaze across the hard, cracked land Caleb had spent a lifetime building. "And I will burn this rotten cow pen to the ground to show this town who holds the law." Caleb said nothing. There was nothing to say. Thompson turned his horse, but before riding off, he glanced back, his eyes blazing like fire. 1 day, Morgan. After that, the gates of hell open. The sound of hooves faded into the distance, leaving the ranch drowning in heavy silence. Inside the house, Tala gripped the edge of the bed, her teeth clenched, her eyes burning with a mix of rage and worry. They both knew. From this moment on, the only road left was to run. Before the red dust from the sheriff's horse had even settled on the dirt road, Caleb was already back inside, bolting the door and sliding the iron latch into place. The small cabin darkened instantly, lit only by the flickering flame of the oil lamp, like the heartbeat of someone on the edge of panic. Tala stood leaning against the wooden table, her breath still heavy from her wounds, but her eyes burned like glowing embers. "What did he say?" she asked, her voice hoarse but cold as steel. Caleb was swapping saddles, checking his gun. His hands did not shake. "We have 1 day," he replied. "By tomorrow's sunset, he comes back to hang us both." Tala gripped the table edge so hard the wood creaked. "I told you. You should have left me." Caleb glanced at her like she had just told a bad joke. "I do not leave anyone to badge-wearing devils." Tala narrowed her eyes, her voice low and sharp. "Why? You owe me nothing. You saved me, that should be enough." Caleb paused for a beat, his eyes still and heavy as stone. "Your father deserves justice. And you deserve to live." The silence that followed was short, but in it, Tala saw something rare in his gaze. Not pity, but a kind of steady kindness she had not seen in a long time. Outside, the wind shifted, bringing with it the dry smell of dust and that strange, unnatural stillness that only comes with a western night. Caleb tied waterskins to the saddle, packed dry bread, and slung the cloth pouch Tala had taken from the sheriff. "Fort Dodge," Caleb said. "The commander there has not been bought by Thompson. They will listen." Tala pushed herself upright, her face pale from the pain, but she said nothing. When Caleb reached out to steady her, she flinched not from injury, but from the unexpected respect he offered her. "An Apache warrior. You know the sheriff will come after us," she said. "I do. He has 6 men, and I have 1 gun, and 1 oversized warrior," Caleb replied, the corner of his mouth curling slightly. Tala let out a quiet laugh, wincing with the pain. They led the horses behind the ranch, avoiding the main road. The night had turned pitch black, no moon, no stars, just darkness thick as tar. Caleb helped Tala onto the saddle. "Aren't you afraid?" Tala asked, as Caleb mounted behind her, reins in hand. Of course, he whispered, but if I let fear win, they will come hang me anyway. The horse kicked off, galloping into the night, and just as they disappeared beyond the ridge, from the opposite direction, torches flickered in the dark. Sheriff Thompson had split his men into small groups, spreading out like a pack of wolves on the hunt. Caleb pushed the horse to run faster. Tala looked back, whispering into the wind like a vow. He killed him, and he will pay. The road to Fort Dodge lay uncertain ahead. Behind them, hell was already on their trail. Thank you for being here. If this story brought back memories of the old days, dusty sunsets, and hoofbeats echoing in your heart, then hit that subscribe button, so each day, we can sit together once more, and I'll tell you another story from the Wild West. The western night had only just finished swallowing the horizon when the sound of hooves behind them thundered like war drums. Caleb could hear the rhythm clearly, the steady beat of men who hunted people more often than they hunted buffalo. The wind lashed their faces, dust rising in thick waves like smoke. Tala clung to the saddle with her wounded arm, her breath heavy, but her gaze steady and unflinching. They are closing in faster than I thought, Caleb murmured, tilting his head to catch the wind. Tala answered, her voice eerily calm. They are wolves, and we are bleeding. Behind them, a torch flared, then two, then three. Sheriff Thompson's men were lighting their way, making it easier to follow the tracks. Caleb gritted his teeth. That bastard really means to kill us. Tala ducked lower to avoid the wind slashing across her face. He wants to kill the truth. Then she looked sideways at Caleb. And you are carrying the truth on your back. Caleb said nothing, only pulled the reins tighter, forcing the horse to push harder through the dark. But Tala could feel it, the animal was wearing down. It had not been born to outrun a pack of rested, relentless riders. A sharp whistle cut through the air behind them. Then the sheriff's voice boomed across the prairie. Morgan, you cannot outrun me. Give me the savage, and I'll spare your life. Caleb shouted back, not looking over his shoulder. Keep dreaming. Shouts followed, then a few gunshots fired into the air, just enough to intimidate, to demand surrender. But none of them dared shoot at Caleb yet. The sheriff still wanted Tala alive. The wind howled louder, the prairie stretched out endlessly, and up ahead a pale yellow glow flickered like a promise. Tala saw it first. Caleb, I see it. Watchtower lights. Fort Dodge is just ahead. Caleb followed her gaze, heart pounding in his chest. If the horse can hold on, we might make it. But right then, the hooves behind them exploded into a furious charge. Sheriff Thompson had pushed his horse to the front, his shadow fierce in the torchlight, eyes gleaming like a predator locking onto prey. Tala looked back straight at him, her Apache eyes glowing in the firelight like a warrior returned from the edge of death. He's charging, she whispered. He wants to catch us before the gates. Caleb leaned to one side, drawing his gun, but Tala placed her hand on his arm. Do not shoot. If we fire first, we become the criminals. Caleb cursed under his breath and lowered the weapon. Then we run. They drove the horse harder, its chest heaving like it might burst. Tala's shoulder slammed against Caleb's back with every jolt of the saddle. But not once did she cry out in pain. The wind screamed past their ears, red dust curling around them in a thick, suffocating veil. Ahead, the fires of the fort burned brighter. Behind, Sheriff Thompson was closing in, foot by foot, and now, the line between life and death was no more than a faint glimmer on the horizon. The yellow lights of the fort came into full view now, flickering like the anxious eyes of someone bracing for bad news. Caleb urged the horse forward one last time. It let out a hoarse cry, but still barreled ahead, as if it understood that its rider's life hung by a thread. Behind them, Sheriff Thompson roared, "Stop, Morgan. One more step, I swear I'll shoot that horse down and both of you with it." Caleb looked back. All he could see was Thompson's face soaked in sweat, eyes bloodshot with hate. The distance between them was down to mere yards. He was right on their heels. Tala gritted her teeth, clutching the saddle with bloodied hands. Keep going. We're almost there. A bugle call sounded from the watchtower. 2 Union soldiers rushed to the stone wall. One raised a signal lantern, the other lifted a rifle. "Who goes there?" Caleb shouted, his voice raw. "Witness to a murder. Open the gate. Hurry." In that instant, Sheriff Thompson reared his horse, drew his gun, and aimed straight at Caleb's back. Tala saw it, her eyes went wide. "Caleb, he's going to shoot!" Caleb dropped low onto the horse's neck. The bullet whizzed past his ear, slicing the air just as a soldier on the wall yelled, "Sheriff Thompson, stand down, you're on federal ground." The sheriff screamed back, wild with rage, "Get down from there. This is town business. I'll deal with them right here." The soldiers raised their rifles in unison. "Drop your weapon. This is a direct order from the United States Army." The fortress gate began to lift heavy, slow, as if trying to test their hearts. Caleb yelled again, "Faster." Thompson charged like a beast, cornered and mad. The gap between him and Caleb vanished to just a few feet. Tala turned, fire in her eyes. "He's going to grab us," Caleb shouted. "Duck." He yanked the reins, swerving the horse in a sharp, slicing arc, just as Thompson reached out for Tala. The sheriff missed. His horse stumbled. The gate flew open. Caleb drove the horse through, Tala gripping the saddle as soldiers rushed forward to block the path behind them. The moment they crossed into the fort, the gate slammed shut with a thunderous clang, cutting Thompson off just a few hoofbeats away. The sheriff screamed, slamming his rifle butt against the iron bars. "Morgan, that savage is mine. Open the damn gate, now." The lead soldier stood behind the stone wall and answered in a voice cold as steel. "No one belongs to you, Sheriff. And you just fired your weapon at a witness on federal soil." Thompson froze for a moment, then his face twisted in shock. Tala exhaled slowly, as if releasing an entire nightmare from her chest. Caleb turned to her, his eyes still lit with tension. "We made it. From here on, the truth will do its job." But both of them knew. Thompson would not stop. He had lost face, and a man like him would do anything to take back power. With blood, the steel gates of Fort Dodge had barely cooled from their heavy slam when Lieutenant Whitman led Caleb and Tala into the barracks. The torchlight cast flickering shadows across Tala's face covered in lash marks, swollen bruises, dried blood causing several soldiers nearby to frown in silent disapproval. Whitman looked at both of them, his voice low and firm. "Tell me everything. In here, Thompson has no authority." Tala stood tall, though her shoulders trembled slightly from the pain. "The sheriff killed my father." Her voice was not loud, not shaky, just sharp as a spear. "He carried gold from our tribe to trade for supplies. Thompson ambushed him, shot him, then buried the body." Caleb placed the cloth bag of gold on the wooden table. "This, the evidence." And he strung her up like an animal, just to silence her. Whitman's tone dropped deeper. "If the body is where you say it is, we will find it." Immediately, he ordered a patrol to mount up and ride into the night toward the banks of the Arkansas River. Caleb and Tala watched them disappear into the darkness. Neither of them spoke. The silence was thick like the sky itself, holding its breath, waiting for judgment. Outside the gate, Sheriff Thompson still had not left. He paced back and forth on horseback, slamming the gate, cursing, threatening at times, even screaming. "Morgan, I'll burn your damn ranch to the ground. This whole prairie will know you're a traitor." The soldiers on the wall said nothing. Only Thompson's own rage answered him back in the dark. Close to midnight, the patrol returned. Their torches flickered like glowing embers against the black sky. Tala clenched her fists until her knuckles turned white. Caleb could feel the tension in every breath she took. The lead soldier dismounted, carrying a long, heavy bundle wrapped in cloth. He unfolded it. A body. Tala's father, partially decayed, but the gunshot wound in his back was still clear. His clothes were torn, like someone had rifled through them. And the worst part, he had not been buried like a man, just a shallow ditch, carelessly covered. Tala did not cry. She knelt down and laid a hand on the cloth, her eyes holding the silence of mountains. An Apache's grief does not need sobs to be real. Whitman turned to Caleb. Everything matches their story. Then he gave the order. "Open the gate. Arrest Sheriff Thompson." The sheriff barely had time to react before soldiers rushed through the gate. 3 men pinned him to the ground before he could even reach for his gun. "Get off me!" he roared, his face red with fury. "You rotten bastards, I am the law in that town." Whitman stood over him, voice calm but sharp as steel. "No, you are a murderer," Thompson thrashed, trying to catch a glimpse of Caleb and Tala through the soldiers. "Morgan, I'll drag you to hell with me. I swear." A rifle butt silenced him. Tala watched him being bound not with satisfaction, but with the quiet ache of someone who had finally made grief speak its true name. Caleb stood beside her and said softly, "Your father is free now." Tala replied, her voice quiet but steady as stone. "And you? You gave honor back to an Apache. That means more than life itself." The night at Fort Dodge fell silent. Only the truth remained rising from the earth, finally unburied. Fort Dodge handled the case faster than anywhere else in the Wild West. After gathering statements and evidence, the military escorted Sheriff Thompson onto a prison wagon bound for Topeka, where he would stand trial. He howled, cursed, and thrashed like a beast stripped of its fangs, but there was no power left for him to cling to. Tala watched as the wagon disappeared beyond the gates of the fort. Caleb stood beside her, his hand gently resting at her elbow, a quiet, steady presence. "It's over," Caleb said softly. Tala did not answer right away. She looked toward the setting sun where golden light poured down like a river of fire, washing the prairie in crimson. "Not yet," she replied. "My father still needs to be returned to the tribe." Caleb nodded without a word. He knew this kind of pain did not need sympathy. It needed action. And together, they did just that. The next day, the army handed Tala her father's remains. Caleb carefully secured the wrapped cloth to the horse's back, while Tala walked behind, her steps heavy, yet filled with dignity. They spent the afternoon burying him according to Apache tradition. There were no tears, no wailing, only the sound of wind blowing through wildflowers arranged in a circle. Caleb stood silently, hat over his chest. Tala placed her hand on the earth and spoke in her native tongue words low and warm, like a song rising from the soul of the plains. When she rose, something in her eyes had changed. The pain was still there, but now, it had settled into strength. In the days that followed, Caleb brought Tala back to the ranch. Though her body had not yet fully healed, she insisted on working to repay the life she owed. Caleb refused at first, but Tala offered a rare smile. "I am not a freeloader. An Apache does not carry debt for long." Caleb finally nodded, and so, each evening after the day's work was done, they would sit together on the old porch, watching the cattle return to the pen, breathing in the scent of hay drifting on the breeze. The Kansas sunset stretched out like the sun god's red carpet, painting their skin with a warm bronze glow. One evening, when the wind was gentler than usual, Tala said softly, "If you hadn't ridden by that day," Caleb smiled and cut in, "then I would have missed the chance to save an innocent life." Tala looked at him for a long moment. In her deep black eyes, there was no longer the guarded look of a warrior once strung up like an animal, but trust. A rare thing in a West where loyalty was as fragile as the wind. "I owe you more than I can say," she said. Caleb shook his head. "No. Ever since we survived the prairie together, I think we owe each other nothing anymore." The evening wind passed through, carrying the scent of warm earth and the promise of a quieter tomorrow. Two souls once thrown into the storm of cruelty now sat side by side on a porch, watching the sun go down as if Kansas had finally agreed to give them a sliver of the peace they had long deserved. "My friends, some people in this world wear no badge. They hold no power, and no one cheers for them. But they stand on the side of truth, with calloused hands and hearts that never bowed to evil. They do not choose the easy path, they choose the right one. And it is these kind souls, the ones who dare to save a life, who dare to speak a truth, that keep the world lit. Because when the truth has someone to stand beside it, the darkness never wins." It has been an honor to share this story with you. Wherever you are, I wish you peace and happiness. I love you all, my dear audience of Wild West storytelling. Tell me what you thought of this story. Drop a comment down below. Hit the number 8 if this tale touched you. And do not forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories from the Wild West.